What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another highly combustible reaction, which I've been into something awesome. I've been learning a lot about y'all's language. America has so many different versions of English. If you aren't from a certain place, you sometimes don't know what the hell people are talking about, even though they're saying something very, very similar or something that you already know in your head, but it's just a different word. Let's jump in. Let's check it out together. See what we got. 4 ways American English is pretty weird. It could definitely get weird. Get over and show Lost in the Pond all the love of the world. We're already subbed up. We already smashed that like button. Let's go on a journey. See what we got. You might learn something today.
Hello, I'm Lawrence, and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond and...
He already has my attention. His voice is amazing.
And I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond, and one of those memos pertains to English.
There's definitely some things that got lost in that pond.
Specifically varieties of English that are spoken by American humans and children. Ever since my first poorly lit video, I've made several more in defense of American English. And that's because...
In defense of American English?
As I said in this video, the story of American English, much like the story of language in general, is highly compelling. But it's also completely and utterly a little bit bonkers. How do I know? Because I've heard, read, and sometimes spoken it while living in the United States for the past 16 years. Whether we're talking about words that have the same meaning or regional variations that are completely unknown in other parts of the country, American English, like British English, is packed with quirks. And if you like quirky things and haven't subscribed to this channel, do that now!
Do it now! Go subscribe!
In the meantime, let's take a look at how American English is one bizarre variety of English. In case you've only just woken up, that transition slide did not say cinnamon rolls. We just couldn't think of a...
I was thinking cinnamon rolls in my head, too.
That's a pun for the word synonym. What's a synonym, Lawrence? Good question, Lawrence. A synonym is a word or phrase that has the same meaning as another word or phrase. For example, remember 3 weeks ago when I said this? Cougars, pumas, mountain lions, catamounts, and panthers. I'm being told those are different words for the exact same animal. Well, just like how the British have 348 words for drunk, the United States has a significant number of synonyms of its own, many of which are dependent upon where in the country you are. For instance,
my trip around America has led me born in California, raised in Alabama and Kentucky, back to California, out to North Carolina on the other side, back to California, up to Oregon, back down to California. It's been a lot of California, but I've lived in quite a few different places, and you're always going to run into something that you don't know. For me, that's a crawdad.
North, these curious crustaceans often go by the name of crayfish. However, in the deep south, where they are most commonly harvested, they are known as crawfish. But try telling that to people in the middle or in the west who might know them as crawdads.
We know them as crawdads.
Would have had a field day with those people.
But when I was in the south, we called them crawfish.
Ever since last year when I bought my first American house, I've received all kinds of weird things in the mail, and at no point did I make my address public. So how did people get a hold of it? Don't worry about that. Well, it turns out that data brokers had collected personal data about me and my house and sold it to various property listing websites. And when I say various, I mean 124. As you can imagine, nobody has time to ask that many websites to remove their personal data because it would literally take weeks. So thank goodness for our partner today, Incogni. Incogni is a personal data removal tool that contacts those data brokers on your behalf. In fact, just 10 minutes after launching my first batch of removal requests, roughly 1/3 of data brokers confirmed my data had been removed. If your personal details are showing up on people search websites, Incogni can help you remove them. In fact, they're giving my subscribers 60% off their annual plan. Head to incogni.com/lostinthepond to get your discount and to thereafter protect your data. The link is in my description.
That's actually kind of smart.
During that deeply beautiful brand integration, Max just told me that his family knew crawfish as mud bugs, which makes me think of wood lice.
I have definitely heard them called mud bugs before.
What are wood lice?
What the hell is a wood lice? That's a roly-poly.
It's what we Americans call roly-polies.
I was a roly-poly kid. I used to come home every single day with roly-polies in my pockets. My mom would go to put me in the bathtub. She'd turn all of us kids did it. She'd turn your pockets inside out. Sure as hell, there'd be roly-polies in there.
Actually, they're called potato bugs.
I don't even have a name for that thing.
It's a pill bug. It's a roly-poly.
The Ohio River, my family called them pill bugs.
Dude, These are doodle bugs.
Lawrence is lying. In England, we actually call them cheesy bugs.
That's regional.
In Devon, we call them chiggy pigs.
It's Parsons pigs.
Okay,
What?
clearly British English is the bonkers one. The point is, as a country with an area of 3.8 million square miles, you could say that the US might be even more prone to interregional synonyms than Britain. Then again, I remember when I first moved from my English hometown of Grimsby. No one at university knew what the word Mardy meant, and Mardy just means you're in a bad mood.
I've never heard of that word.
Yes, and what I need you to do right now is to pay close attention to the previous transition slide. Are you serious? It almost looks like text speak, except in that case my team would have written it like this. Instead, only the word R is textified because it is the letter R that I want you to pay close attention to. You see, one of the defining linguistic traits shared by most, though not all Americans, is the post-vocalic R in words like, well, Mardy. Aside from the fact that it sounds like the name Marty in American English, rhotic speakers in the US would more or less pronounce this regionally English word as Mardy.
Yeah,
However,
Marty.
since moving to the United States, I've detected one or two exceptions to this rule. Number one, there are still small pockets of the US that remain non-rhotic, like most of England. Number two, as I've mentioned before,
Park the car in Harvard Yard type
there
shit.
are rare instances in which Americans will incorporate a post-vocalic R in words that don't have one, like colonel.
Colonel.
And C,
3.
and number three, there are peculiar instances of words that do have them, but for which the R is often unpronounced. Take, for example, the word forward. While most Americans pronounce it
Forward.
a phenomenon has emerged in recent decades in which some Americans drop the first R. In linguistic circles, this phenomenon is known as dissimilation. That's when speakers drop a vowel or consonant if it appears later within the same word. And it owes much
You would never hear me. Maybe you will. Maybe do I say forward? No, I say forward, not forward.
to the principle of
Unless I'm in a
horror
hurry.
which proposes that language users psychologically avoid repetition of identical linguistic structures. That's why some Americans might also dissimilate the first R in words like governor, berserk, and particular.
Moving forward, the governor in particular will go completely berserk. Larry.
Yeah, it's a free kick. While consecutive instances of the letter Z have inexplicably come to denote the sound of snoring, they also show up with surprising frequency in words that were coined in the United States. Perhaps the most famous is jazz, a world-renowned form of music that emerged out of the African-American communities of New Orleans from the late 19th century. It is widely believed that the word jazz evolved out of jasm, which meant vitality or energy, and not what you're thinking about, you little... In fact, it went through several
You
definitions
caught me. You caught me.
before lending itself to an entire genre of music, something that first occurred right here in Chicago in 1915. And the jazz age that followed spawned several Z-heavy words like snazzy, pizzazz, Twizzlers, and future astronaut Buzz
Twizzlers are
Aldrin.
terrible.
So it was perhaps little wonder that one of the nation's favorite meals became so popular at about that time. Pizza. In fact,
We call it some different things where you come from. You can call it a pie, you can call it a za, you can call it a pizza.
you kind of have to wonder if it would have had the staying power in the United States if the Italians had named it something without Zs, like bread pie. That certainly wouldn't have led to America also giving us the word pizzeria from 1928. And I know what you're thinking. Ooh, Lawrence, Z-heavy words were just one of many fads of the jazz age. One era doesn't a dataset make. Then know this, more than 20 years before jazz entered the lexicon, American English also gave us razzle-dazzle, razzmatazz, and almost certainly blizzard. They have 10 Zs between them. And in the years since, American English has rolled out buzzcut, ZZ Top, and most recently, Riz, a slang form of the word charismatic, which today is appropriately popular with Gen Z. So what does all of this
I've never said Riz in my
tell us?
life.
It could tell us
Ever.
that Americans are guided by their senses. Many of the words that I listed are partly or fully onomatopoeic. What does onomatopoeic mean, Lawrence? Onomatopoeic words are words that sound like the thing they are describing, whether it is the buzz of a razor or the sizzle of pepperoni. Either that or the American Scrabble Union just really wanted to raise the stakes. That said,
Yeah,
there's
we needed some high letter Scrabble
at least
words.
one such word for which the United States can't take credit, and that word is drizzle, which emerged in England many centuries ago and hasn't stopped emerging since. As evidenced by the word forward, Americans can't always agree on how a word should be delivered, and this is by no means unique to America. In Britain, we're still fighting wars over how to say this. It's a scone.
It's a scone.
But sometimes American English takes things a step further. Sometimes a word is delivered differently because subtly it is a different word. There are members of my wife's family alone who describe their favourite vices as addictive, and others who say addicting, a word I'd not heard until moving to the United States. Similarly, familial lines are also drawn on whether one does something by accident or on accident. Here you go. Sorry. That was on purpose, actually. Americans are often ridiculed for saying "I could care less" because "I could care less" implies that they care a lot. In other words, so.
I've never even thought about the "I could care less," but you're absolutely right.
I could care less because "I could care less" implies that they care a lot.
Wow.
In other words, so
We're
goes
definitely
the logic.
on a learning
I couldn't
adventure.
care less would be more, well, logical.
It would
But from
be
what
more
I've seen,
appropriate.
half of the people doing the ridiculing are Americans themselves. You see, the real divide in this country is not between right and left. It is between those who could care less and those who couldn't, a bit like me on this issue. The truth is, English is itself quirky, whether we're talking about British English, English of the United States, or that of other countries that Britain invaded. Without this quirkiness, the English language probably wouldn't be half as interesting, and I'd be stuck making videos about just animals. Actually, on that note, I have to run now because a certain doggy of mine is being prepped for a starring role in my next video. Bye!
Larry, that was a little abrupt.
Well,
That was
data shows
very
that viewers
abrupt.
click away during those meandering goodbyes, so I figured we'd get around it by not letting them.
Okay, but you didn't tell them to continue binging by watching the Why American English is Highly Misunderstood video.
Max, if our audience is as smart as you think they are, then they'll figure it out.
You
It's
may be
right there.
I'm always sometimes right.
Lawrence, I will listen
Hello.
to you speak about anything for any amount of time. He has the most fascinating narrator's voice. There were some things in there that even as an American, I never thought of. I can see, after living in several spots, I could see why coming to America and trying to learn English here would be very difficult because it all depends on the geographical location that you end up in here. People, I promise you, people speak completely different. If you take someone from New York and someone from LA, they're going to speak different. If you take someone from LA and someone from Alabama or Florida or Georgia, they're going to speak differently. The southern drawl in North Carolina and South Carolina is different than the southern drawl down in the southern states. Louisiana and Mississippi is a whole different beast. Like, there's so many words that are geographical in nature that it could be very, very difficult. This is an awesome video. Like, for sure, we'll check out part 2. Get over, show Lost in the Pond all the love in the world if you enjoyed it. If you learned something today, go show Lawrence some love. Smash the like button if you liked it. The dislike button, but I won't believe you. Tell the next one I'm either combustible. You guys be happy, healthy, safe. I love you to the moon, the back.